It was supposed to be a regular Tuesday morning. Nothing special, just me with a mug of coffee, trying to catch up on emails while the sun crept through the blinds. And then, out of nowhere, I heard it, the metallic click of my front door unlocking. My stomach dropped like a stone. That sound wasn't a knock. It wasn't my son coming home early. It was the sound of someone letting themselves into my house with a key they weren't supposed to have. By the time I jumped up and rushed toward the entryway, my heart slamming in my throat, I couldn't believe what I saw. Standing inside my living room like she owned the place was none other than the HOA president herself. Smug, clipboard in hand, eyes sweeping across my belongings as if she was inspecting inventory. Her name was Patricia Clark. 52, sharp steel, gray hair pulled back tight, navy blazer that looked like it belonged in some courthouse instead of our quiet suburban street. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. "Routine inspection," she said smoothly, like she was reading off a script. "We've had complaints, and under HOA authority we're permitted emergency access." Her smile was the kind that made my skin crawl, condescending, like she expected me to thank her for violating my home. My voice shook when I asked, "What the hell are you doing in my house?" She ignored the anger in my tone, walking past me like she'd been here a dozen times before. That's what chilled me the most, not just her arrogance, but her familiarity. She glanced at the painting on my wall, the watch on the table, even mentioned a vase that wasn't even visible from where she stood. How could she know that? Before I could wrap my head around it, footsteps thundered down the stairs. My son Mark, 23, and on break from law school to help care for his grandmother, came down with that sharp, steady look he gets when something doesn't add up. He looked Patricia dead in the eye and asked, calm but cutting, "Who are you, and what gives you the right to be in our home without permission?" No yelling, no threats, just deliberate, lawyer-like precision. Patricia tried to hold her ground, declaring she was acting under HOA bylaws, but the cracks were already showing. Mark didn't let up. "Show me the section that authorizes unannounced entry. Show me a court order. Show me anything legal." Every question made her stammer more. I could see her hand trembling around that clipboard. She tried to bluff her way through, but the confidence drained from her face. She eventually shuffled out, muttering weak excuses, but as she left, she turned and said, "That blue vase of yours is really something." The problem was, that vase was in my bedroom, nowhere near the door. My blood went cold after she was gone. I tore through the house. My desk papers slightly shifted, drawers not the way I'd left them. Even my late wife's jewelry box disturbed. I'd chalked those little things up to forgetfulness before, but not anymore. I sank down in the kitchen chair, head in my hands, a wave of helplessness washing over me. For a moment, I doubted myself. Was I being paranoid? Imagining things? Grief plays tricks on you, and after losing my wife, I'd had nights where the smallest creak made me feel unmoored. I almost convinced myself it was all in my head. But then Mark leaned forward, voice steady. "Dad, this isn't paranoia. This is trespass. This is criminal." He opened his laptop, pulling up laws, showing me black and white proof. "HOAs can fine you. Sure, they can litigate, but they cannot enter private homes without consent. She has zero authority here." Later that day, a knock at the door interrupted us. It was Mrs. Reynolds, our neighbor from down the street, silver-haired, glasses sliding down her nose. She hesitated at first, but finally admitted she'd seen Patricia entering homes when people weren't around. She'd worked in housing compliance before retiring, and she knew this wasn't normal. "At least 5 homes," she said, voice trembling. Always quick, always with a bag when she left. My heart sank. I wasn't alone. That night, sleep was impossible. Every sound in the house made me flinch. I started to wonder if I'd lost my mind completely. But then Mark pulled up our doorbell footage. And there she was, Patricia, unlocking our front door in broad daylight. Not once, not twice, but 3 separate times in the past 2 weeks. Spending nearly an hour inside on one occasion. Watching her slip out with that small bag clenched in her hand made bile rise in my throat. That was the moment I snapped. No more second guessing. No more doubting my instincts. She'd been here, in my sanctuary, touching my things, rifling through the pieces of my life I held most dear. From that night on, we went on the offensive. Mark, with his law student precision, began building a case. Mrs. Reynolds started compiling her notes, dates, photos she'd taken discreetly. And me, I wrestled with a moral knot I hadn't expected. Was it right to bait someone, to set a trap, even if she was already guilty? For a split second, I almost said no, almost walked away, thinking maybe the police wouldn't believe us. That was my lowest point, where the weight of it all nearly crushed me into silence. But Mark looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, she's already committing the crimes. We're not pushing her. We're just catching her." Something in his certainty lit a fire in me again. We set up hidden cameras in the living room, bedroom, kitchen. We marked cash with invisible ink, cataloged jewelry, even placed trackers on a few valuables. Every move was documented, airtight. And then we waited. Days passed with my nerves shot to pieces. But then, that Friday morning, the alert came. Patricia, bold as ever, key in hand, walking straight into my house again. We watched from across the street, alongside Detective Alvarez and his team, as she went room to room. She picked up the watch, pocketed the marked cash, rifled through drawers like it was just another day at the office. But this time, when she stepped out the front door, cops swarmed. "Patricia Clark, you're under arrest for burglary, fraud, and abuse of authority." The look on her face, I'll never forget it. Shock, disbelief, and then sheer terror as the reality sank in. She tried the same tired excuse, claiming it was official HOA business, but they had everything. Footage, stolen property glowing under UV, items traced back to neighbors. She was done. The search of her car turned up even more. Jewelry, electronics, cash, things reported missing all over the neighborhood. And the kicker? Her financial records showed massive gambling debts, tens of thousands owed. She hadn't been acting as some overzealous HOA president. She'd been running a personal theft operation to keep her addiction afloat. Neighbors gathered outside as she was cuffed, whispering, pointing, realizing the woman who lectured them about grass height and mailbox paint was nothing more than a thief hiding in plain sight. Watching her shoved into the squad car, I didn't feel triumph so much as a deep exhale, like the weight pressing on my chest for months had finally been lifted. Court came fast, and Patricia tried every angle, claiming misunderstandings, crying about her debts, even painting herself as some kind of martyr for community safety. But the evidence was relentless. Video after video, testimony from multiple families, financial trails that matched every theft. The judge didn't buy a word. She was sentenced to prison, ordered to pay restitution, and banned for life from any HOA involvement. Walking out of that courtroom, I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Finally. Without that constant sense of violation hovering over me, my house still carried the scars of her intrusions, but at least now, I knew she wouldn't be back. I stood on my porch later that evening, looking out at the quiet street, and I thought about how close I came to dismissing my instincts, convincing myself I was crazy, but I wasn't crazy. She really had been there, lurking in my home, stealing from me and my neighbors. Sometimes justice doesn't look like fireworks or applause. Sometimes it's just the sound of handcuffs clicking shut on your front lawn while the whole block watches. Sometimes it's the silence after a predator is finally taken away. That silence was enough for me. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's simple. Never let anyone, not even an HOA president, make you doubt your right to feel safe in your own home. That's the lesson I carry. And that's the truth I share here on HOA Drama Unfolded.